Have you ever noticed how often we demand the right to speak our minds, but rarely take the time to truly think? Today, we're diving deep into the idea that while we fiercely protect freedom of speech, we often neglect the most important freedom of all, the freedom to think. The famous quote we're exploring says, "People demand freedom of speech as a compensation for the freedom of thought, which they seldom use." These words might make us pause and reflect on the relationship between speaking and thinking, and how we can use both more wisely in today's world. Let's break it down together and see how this ancient wisdom holds a mirror to modern society. We all value our freedom of speech. It's a fundamental right in many parts of the world. It allows us to express our ideas, voice our concerns, and participate in important discussions. But how often do we really think before we speak? How much of what we say is truly thoughtful, considered, and rooted in our own understanding of the world? In today's fast-paced world, we're bombarded with information from all directions: social media, news outlets, even our daily conversations. With all this noise, it can be easy to simply repeat what we hear, without taking the time to deeply reflect on it. The freedom to speak has never been more accessible, but has the freedom to think been left behind? This brings us to the heart of the quote. Is the demand for freedom of speech a substitute for the deeper, more challenging work of thinking critically? Critical thinking requires us to pause, reflect, and question the information we receive. It's the ability to analyze arguments, evaluate evidence, and come to our own conclusions. But this process takes time and effort, and in our busy lives, it's easy to skip that step. Think about how many times you've seen someone argue passionately online or in person, yet their views seem to lack depth or understanding. It's not because they don't care, it's because it's easier to speak out than to deeply consider all sides of an issue. So how can we reclaim the freedom to think? How can we ensure that our words are not just empty expressions, but meaningful contributions to the conversations that matter? First, we need to make space for thought in our daily lives. This means setting aside time to reflect on the ideas that are important to us, whether they come from the media, conversations, or even our own experiences. When we take the time to process information thoughtfully, we can form our own perspectives rather than simply adopting the views of others. This doesn't mean we need to retreat from discussions, but rather that we engage with them more intentionally. Ask yourself, why do I believe this? What evidence supports my opinion? Have I considered other viewpoints? These questions are the foundation of true freedom of thought. There's also power in silence. Just because we have the freedom to speak doesn't mean we always have to. Sometimes, taking a step back to think before we respond can lead to a more meaningful conversation later on. Silence allows us to absorb, understand, and evaluate the world around us before jumping to conclusions. In fact, silence can be a form of strength. It shows that we value thought over the impulse to speak, and that we're willing to listen and learn before contributing our voice. Thoughtful speech, where freedom of thought and freedom of speech meet. When we truly embrace freedom of thought, our words gain power. They become more than just reactions. They carry weight, insight, and purpose. Thoughtful speech bridges the gap between having the right to speak and using that right wisely. It's the difference between adding noise to the world and contributing something of value. Imagine a world where more people paused to think before they spoke, where ideas were shared not just for the sake of being heard, but because they could move conversations forward, inspire change, and challenge old ways of thinking. That's the potential of combining freedom of thought with freedom of speech. As we navigate this complex, ever-connected world, we have an incredible opportunity. We can choose to be more mindful about how we use our freedoms, both to think and to speak. By embracing thoughtful reflection, we can elevate our conversations, our communities, and even our own personal growth. This isn't about limiting free speech, it's about enhancing it. When we pair the right to speak with the freedom to think, our words become powerful tools for progress, understanding, and transformation. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a challenge. The next time you find yourself about to speak, whether in a conversation, on social media, or even in your own mind, take a moment to reflect. Ask yourself, have I truly thought this through? Is this my own view, or am I repeating something I've heard without much thought? By making space for thought, we can make our words matter. And when our words matter, we make a bigger impact on the world around us. If this message resonated with you, let's continue the conversation. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. How do you practice the freedom of thought in your daily life? And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more content that dives into meaningful ideas like this one. Also, as a special thank you for watching, we've put together a downloadable guide to help you develop your critical thinking skills and make the most of both your freedom of speech and thought. Thank you for watching, and remember, true freedom starts with the mind.